Crisis is giving birth to a new humanity. But are we ready to take the quantum leap? Are we ready to see ourselves as a different species? A new humanity is arising in a novel habitat. How are the natural and digital environments merging? What lies ahead? Digital Pilgrims is a voyage on an immaterial sea, a collective search for meaning. Listen to the episode and join the conversation. Episode 19, Quantum Humanity.
If we consider models of humanity defined by their productive mode, that is, by how they transform their environment, we might think that the changes to civilization caused by the Industrial Revolution produced another kind of humanity. We can find precedents there that define the ideal of humanity during the industrial era. A humanity able to control its environment through technology, measuring time precisely, organizing travel punctually, staying productive, and being efficient. Humanity during the industrial era deepened its feeling of hierarchy over nature, and at the same time, faced a reality that placed it in a totally functional role. These mechanisms for building an identity incorporated consumption as a form of constituting and expressing oneself. We can therefore recognize certain models of humanity defined by the changes in each era, by productive relationships and connections to the environment humanity inhabits. The same thing may be happening in the present. The modern individual who forges their identity from a collective viewpoint through community participation also develops an individual identity that is affected by the new omnipresent and asynchronous reality. This transforms the individual in such a way that a new social type is created, the individual in the quantum age. This individual is defined by their relationship to the new reality, perceived through the innovations of quantum physics, which are in turn transformed by digital technologies, with definitive consequences in all spheres of human life. This new type of individual is no longer exclusively defined by their relationship with space-time and understands that reality extends beyond the natural environment. We can understand the hypothetical appearance of this new type of humanity as a possible consequence of the crisis we are currently experiencing. Humanity in the quantum age is no longer oppressed by the limitations of biology and of struggling with the new possibilities created by its omnipresent and asynchronous existence. It can develop beyond the physical body. We could think of this new type of individual as someone who draws closer to Renaissance ideas in an attempt to understand and who has a firm belief in empowerment and the potential of the individual, but in a context of collective creation and identification. In other words, it is someone who tries to define themselves as part of a collective, while also recognizing the fact that they can reconfigure more than one identity at a time. Humanity in the quantum age also shows a deep level of integration with frameworks for identity. In this sense, digital technologies that used to be tools for the exploration of identity have become vital frameworks upon which an identity depends in order to carry out its activities in the new age. It is even possible that this configuration will be deepened to the point that physical presence becomes unnecessary. We can therefore expect that identity will evolve different ways of melting into the network. The level of evolution of technology and its integration into our biology, as well as our minds, make it possible for models of identity to progress in a new habitat with vital frameworks of digital intelligences. Therefore, the human factor will also take on a different scope based on what we endow it with. The question that arises is whether this makes us more or less ourselves. With regards to the environment, humanity in the quantum age does not see a barrier between the natural and the digital. It understands that the natural environment and the digital environment not only mutually affect each other, but also that the ever greater interconnection of the two will make it impossible to tell one from the other. While we used to believe that everything that happened in the digital environment was less real than what happened in the natural environment, we now see that this distinction is becoming fuzzier and fuzzier. In some cases, we might admit that it is difficult to draw a dividing line between the two. Is the work we do on a platform or the connections we make in the digital environment less real? What happens when activities, conversations, and relationships happen half online and half in the natural environment? And when these converge into a single new habitat? The experience of technology seems to be transforming into another layer that is added to the natural one, a layer that is integrated into our practices, defined by the relationships between technological devices, as in Lotman's semiosphere, but above all by the connections between those devices and the rest of the objects in our environment. The new habitat of the near future does not yet have a clear outline or coordinates. We are still in the process of seeing how the logics of the natural environment and the digital environment can coexist. What type of borders or perimeters will it be possible to draw in the new habitat? How will the tensions we are currently experiencing disappear, be resolved, or become more complex there? A change of this magnitude has its cost. Social discontent, general unrest, and the increased rigidity of conservative stances are not things that will disappear overnight. On the other hand, we will see whether people can grasp this change while it is occurring. This is not the first crisis humanity has faced, and it possibly will not be the last. But how do we get to that new place? What are the emotional and social costs of that process? Thinking of ourselves as quantum individuals is a collective process that not only has already begun, but also cannot be directed. We have the tools and instruments to endure this transformation because we have already undergone similar changes. It is possible that the greatest difficulty humanity faces today is the appreciable absence of social rituals. It is true that the digital environment currently lacks symbolic construction and that rituals there are not completely formed or indeed institutionalized. Rituals are devices that protect life, and people need them to exist in the digital environment. Humanity's great challenge in the quantum age is to find symbolic meaning in the midst of this reality, whose nature is expanding in two dissimilar environments that are converging into one, in which social behavior must adopt new strategies. Being quantum humans implies rising up in different categories, in individual development, in collective development, and in creating new forms of behavior and making other models of statehood possible. Humanity in this era is not the same one that was experienced during the Renaissance or that was created during the Industrial Revolution, but without a doubt it bears the marks of those historical processes. From a sociological perspective, humanity in the quantum age embodies the changes and dilemmas of modern individuals. It is a concept that seeks to encompass our way of building multiple and parallel identities and our way of relating to each other and to the environment. In particular, it has to do with the human expression of the process of convergence that will give rise to a new reality that implies the naturalization of the digital environment and the digitalization of the natural environment. Perhaps recognizing ourselves socially as quantum people is a step towards finding the meaning we lack.
In the upcoming season, we'll explore what the future holds as we approach the singularity. Our contact with AI forces us to question everything we know. Digital Pilgrims is a podcast based upon the book Digital Pilgrims Towards a Quantum Humanity, sponsored by Codiful, a unique service management platform for remote teams.